Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, Fit Mama. I am so excited to bring you today a chat with Dr. Theresa Lyons. She is an international autism educator. She's an Ivy League scientist and she's an autism parent. Dr. Theresa shares her personal story. She has worked with her own daughter, as well as with hospital systems, private and non-governmental organizations, and she works with parents to drastically diminish the knowledge gap between the cutting-edge science of healing autism and current patient care, so that medical expenses are decreased, burdens on the governmental programs, including education, are lessened, and the child flourishes. I love what Dr. Lyons stands for. I mean, really, she is the world-leading professor of healing autism. She has vast experience in the U.S. healthcare industry, both as a researcher and a strategist. So she really acts on both sides and has the inside story. She has her PhD in chemistry from Yale University, talk about brilliant, and loves to translate this cutting-edge research into actionable steps that organizations and parents can easily take to improve the lives of those with autism. So she has her own daughter. She was diagnosed with autism, and her life, of course, as a mother, as a woman, as a scientist, was changed forever. This is severe autism she has her own daughter diagnosed with, and the changes she's seen since she's implemented what she stands for is quite incredible. So tune in today. Enjoy this episode with the amazing Dr. Theresa Lyons from Navigating Autism at awetism.net. Check it out for yourself, Fit Mama. Enjoy this episode. Hey, hey, Fit Mamas. We are here today with Theresa Lyons, Dr. Theresa Lyons, who runs the blog and the website Awetism, A-W-E, tism.net. And I am so excited to bring you today to talk or listen, I guess, to me talk with Theresa, because she is a wealth of information with regards to autism and raising a special needs daughter and navigating the world that is that motherhood journey. And you've heard me talk about many things, but one thing I don't have is an expertise in this. And Theresa is a pretty incredible lady, and you've heard me introduce her, but I just can't wait to hear a little bit more about her journey, how she got to where she is, and her blog. If you have a child with autism or you know someone who does, I really, really recommend heading over there. So without further ado, let's bring here to you Dr. Theresa Lyons. Welcome.
Wow, thank you very much. Hi, Fit Mamas.
Hey. We are so happy to have you. And you are just, you have so much information, so much knowledge, so much experience to share with us today. And, I really just want to dive right into you as a person and how you got to where you are at right now. So take us a little bit back to, where you came from in your journey and how you're helping people navigate autism today.
Sure. So I can say with 100% confidence that I never planned to be where I am right now.
Yeah, that will be something that everybody, I think, can identify with. Wow.
Yes, there was this was not in my 10-year plan,
No.
my 5-year plan, or really anything like that.
Yeah.
So I started in the pharmaceutical industry, and I have a PhD in computational chemistry from Yale University, and I was a researcher doing R&D, working on many different therapeutic areas. Wow. Then I transitioned over to being a medical strategist, so I was on the more business side of the pharmaceutical industry, so really learning how to advance healthcare initiatives. I did some work with nonprofits, all focused on healthcare.
Okay. Wow. Wow. What a unique background. And then you have one daughter. Do you have any other children?
I have one daughter.
You have one daughter. Okay. Tell us about your journey into motherhood.
Sure. So I actually did not necessarily want to be a mother until I hit about 30.
Interesting.
So I was focused on my career and just really thought that would be fulfilling enough for me. So it really wasn't on my radar until I started getting up to certain levels in my career. And then I just really started asking myself, does what I'm doing matter? And after a lot of thought, it was really, starting a family was what became important to me and something that would really matter to me in the long term.
Beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely. So were you married at that point? Did you have a spouse or partner or?
We were engaged.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay. Nice.
And so we had our daughter, and things were just like a little bit off. And I was one of the first of my friends to have a child, so there wasn't really a lot of friends that I could ask,
Right.
Hey, what's going on with your child, and what milestone are you at? And just things it just wasn't right. It was really hard to connect with my daughter. And just as things went on more and more, the problems she was starting to have were really obvious to me. So she had some words and then she lost them, and she had certain skills and just things were going backwards, which as someone who's kind of A-type personality as me, it's very strange for that to be happening.
So how did you handle that emotionally? Because that would be really stressful. Like you're used to, like you said, A-type of personality, you're used to a little sense of control, right? You study for your exam, you study for your this, you write the thing, you get this mark. That usually follows a sort of predictable path, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah. And then comes baby and everything that comes with that does not ever, I don't think, follow a predictable path. Would you say?
No, not at all.
No. So how did you handle that personally, mentally and emotionally, would you say?
So I had been meditating before my daughter was born. So I had a and it kind of started with grad school. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that happens in grad school to get, a PhD and write your thesis and all of that goes with it. So I had some skills of, doing yoga and some self-care skills, but having a child who just wasn't meeting their milestones, it was harder because in many ways it was out of my control.
Yeah.
So when I was writing my thesis, I was the one controlling how many pages I wrote a day. Okay, if I need to write more, I just sit and work harder.
Exactly.
But with a child with special needs, there were hours where I would sit with her and try and get her to talk. I had a doctor who told me, well, you're just not talking to her enough. If you said banana many times, she would say it. So there were times where we would sit for hours and I would just say banana and I would, go really slowly, ba-na-na. And all of the effort that I was putting in, I was not getting change or what usually happens when I put in a lot of effort.
Yeah, it was nonlinear. So what did you do then? Did you start doing more yoga?
Well, actually, what I started doing was getting my daughter different help. So, when I have a regular pediatrician tell me you just need to talk to her more, and I'm spending hours of spelling out words really slowly, and not much is changing, and things are starting to get even worse. It was noticing that I was in over my head, and I needed help.
Yes. And admitting that, was that hard to admit?
That was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard but at the same time, if I didn't, then things would only get worse and worse.
Yeah.
So kind of this pressure that was on me that I would prefer to be in denial. I would prefer to not have a child who has all these different needs and who's going backwards instead of forwards. But this is my responsibility. This is my child. So I need to do what is needed.
Wonderful. Yeah. Getting to that realization and then taking action. So at that point, what did you do to take action? You started finding a team of people, that sounds like, that you could trust, that knew what they were doing, that knew what you needed.
Well, that's where the background of my medical strategist comes in very handy. So
yes.
I have done this for pharmaceutical companies in they're called key opinion leaders. So the leaders of any medical field, that's really where cutting edge research and the wealth of knowledge is really stored. And then it takes time to get passed down to, a general pediatrician. So I used my career skills and created a healthcare team for her of world-renowned specialists who knew specifically what the cutting edge research was and could really help me make better decisions rather than someone who's getting this information secondhand or thirdhand. I mean, these were doctors who were running their own clinical trials.
Right. They were in it. Well, and that's the truth, is that sometimes we, as hearers of the regular mainstream media, we don't hear things until 5 or 10 years later, if that, right?
Usually it's more like with medical knowledge, it's 20 or 30 years.
That's a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to wait that for my daughter. Her life would have been half over.
How old is your daughter now, Theresa?
She just turned 9.
Wow. So the last 9 years, I guess, or about 6 years since she was diagnosed with autism? Take us back to that point.
So she was diagnosed with severe autism when she was 3.5 years old. And that a diagnosis for autism, it's based on observations. So there's no blood test, urine test where you get the results back and, you look at certain levels of something and say, oh yeah, you've got autism.
Right.
It's all based on observations. So to get the diagnosis, my daughter was observed by 3 or 4 different experts in, like speech, and OT and PT.
Right.
And then the doctor did observations themselves, and then you get the diagnosis. And my question was, all right, now what? And that's really what kind of kept me going. And like, all right, we got the diagnosis. It's not a surprise. She was severely autistic. So now what do I do? And so that's when you started doing your collection of the team, which sounds really inspiring. How many years did that take you? I went quickly.
Yeah, okay, good.
So the person who diagnosed my daughter was the first member of my healthcare team.
Wonderful. Okay.
She was a world-renowned autism expert.
Wonderful.
And the thing was, going into the different appointments, I would leave my mommy hat outside the room. So, I would have an agenda for the doctor. We would discuss certain things. I took a very scientific approach to guiding her health. Yeah. So it was being able to separate that, which is hard to talk to a doctor in a very clinical way rather than a passionate mother way.
Yeah.
So
good for you to differentiate that too, which is really interesting.
It was not easy.
No, it's not, because our emotions get the best of us when we're in that. And you must have had emotions all over the place with this situation.
Yeah, and what I did with that was I would just allow myself times when it would just get to be too much. Usually this would be after I finally got my daughter to sleep. It would probably be like 10, 11. It was hard back then. It was really hard for her to sleep. So it was hard for her to go to sleep. It was hard for her to stay asleep. And so once I got her to sleep, many times I would just collapse on the floor and just let myself cry.
Yeah. Wow.
Just in like a child's pose, just let it all go and not really judge myself for that.
Wow, beautiful. And how many of us do judge ourselves for that? So how did you come to that conclusion where judgment wasn't welcome?
Holding it in for too long and then just almost like having a breakdown. You know, when you try and hold something in, you can only do it for so long. And then it just explodes. So I did it. I held it as long as I could, and then it would just come out, and I would feel better. So that's like, Theresa, just let it go. And then I would start meeting other parents who had children with autism, and we would connect, and we would kind of share our emotional experiences and just be able to have someone to vent to is really key. So support is really helpful, not only in a healthcare team, you know, having the right experts to help you make decisions for your child, but having supportive people around you.
So was there any point where you felt really out of control and you didn't know what to do in terms of day-to-day things? You know, what were you doing day-to-day that allowed you to feel anchored in the fact that you were doing things that helped you and your daughter?
So I guess for the first year or two, I felt completely out of control. I felt like I didn't know the best thing to do, just because there's so much about autism to learn. So all these little acronyms, you know, ABA and OT, PT, it's overwhelming. You have RDI and just to learn what to advocate for. It just takes so much time. But really what drove me was, and this was right around my daughter's diagnosis. She was in the high chair and she had, you know, a big tray in front of her. And it was at that point where it was, do I accept my daughter for how she is, or do I know for sure she wants help? So there's that. Sometimes with autism, you don't know what the person really wants. And I always wanted to honor my daughter. So I decided to get a big piece of paper, and I got like finger paints, these yellow Crayola tubes, and I just dropped these drops of finger paint onto the paper. And I asked her, if you want me to help you, you have to let me know. But if this is how you are and this is you, I can love you for that. But if you want me to help you, you have to let me know. And so she took her hands and she made this heart of finger paints. And she had never made anything that remotely looked like anything. So that was really what would motivate me when I knew what I wasn't doing. I'm like, oh goodness, I have no idea how to have an IEP meeting. I have no idea how to get services at my daughter's school for her. But the thing that drove me was I knew she wanted me to help.
That's so beautiful, Theresa. Wow.
And that's really when I started seeing autism as the way I spell it, AWETISM.
Yeah, take us to that. When did that really become a thing for you?
It was when she was always trying to communicate. She was always trying to interact, but she was so severely sick with autism and her symptoms that would be easy to miss. But as I made changes to her diet and got her more support around her and supplements, probiotics, things like that, and she started feeling better, so I started healing her internally, then I could see more and more how hard she was trying. And I was just in awe of her determination, of her like her feistiness, her just starting to see who she is more and more. And I just became in awe of her.
I love that. That sounds just so beautiful in a way. And, regardless of where our kids are at along their journeys, they are here as our teachers in so many ways. And it sounds like you really saw that as an opportunity, not as a burden.
It took time.
Yeah, of course.
It took time. There was many sleepless nights, but she has taught me so much once I just really allowed myself to have that frame of mind where it was, all right, I can learn from this. I can grow from this. Like, yes, I have a lot of anger and frustration and worry, but that's really when, at least myself, when I grow the most.
I know. Yeah.
I can meditate, I can read a book, but when you're in a situation that is that meaningful, that's when the growth really happens. And she taught so much.
Yes, those hard times, those times where you feel like no way is the best way and you don't know which way to turn. Yeah, that's so true. And, there's so many things that we have to learn from our journeys as moms, and then creeping into when it isn't going well or isn't going right. You've been known to say, hey, I need to up my self-care even more. Let's talk to that for a second.
Yes, definitely. So one thing I did was I really tracked down parents who had healed their children from autism. So it's entirely possible to do. In 2016, research has been published that about 9% of those diagnosed with autism heal completely. And I spoke firsthand with a lot of parents who had done that, and they really passed the information on to me about self-care, because the parents would start off with, yes, my child is doing great now, and, everything is going well. And I would ask them, what would you do differently? And it was really about taking care of themselves, because they just run out of steam. And a lot of times the parents have major health problems of their own. So there was parents I talked to who had either breast cancer or colon cancer or, hip replacements. So the reality of wearing yourself out, trying to do everything by myself, it was just, that wasn't very smart strategy. So I really learned from the parents before me to really dial up that self-care. So as my daughter would start doing better and better, and I would have a few moments, I would think, okay, I need to somehow recharge so that I can be a better mom. I would have, IEP meetings or meetings at the school or things like that. And there were times where I really needed to be on my game, and I couldn't do that if I just kept wearing myself out.
Totally. And, I like that you said somehow recharge. Right? That didn't sound like another to-do list item. It sounded like a relief. And I think that is so valuable to just repeat and emphasize here, that you saw it as life-giving. You saw it as fueling the tank. You saw it like plugging in your cell phone when it's going to die and you won't be able to call anyone, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, and we know that we do that, right? We deplete our cell phone, we plug it in. We deplete ourselves, we go, oh, how much further can I take this? Right? Yeah. So now talk to us a little bit about, if people are running into, questions around their kids or what to do when they have, other than going to your blog, would you recommend any specific practitioners in their areas? Would you recommend people to go see naturopaths? Do you do coaching? Do you do these kind of programs or plans for people? Talk to us a little bit about that, Theresa.
Sure. So I do work with parents in a variety of ways. I work with parents one-on-one, and we answer their very specific questions on where their child is and where their child wants to be. I also have online programs for parents who really want to do more self-study and they just want certain information. I have a program on diets because there are 8 special diets that heal autism symptoms. But the thing is, each diet addresses different symptoms. So unfortunately, that's why with autism, you'll hear, oh, my child did well on gluten-free, but then some other problems came up, or you really have to have a strategy for diet. You can't just pick any diet and be like, oh, it worked for so-and-so, it'll work for my son.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. So I have an online program for diet. I have an online program for probiotics. Rebuilding the gut microbiota is hugely important.
Yeah.
Scientific studies show about how those with autism have a much different microbiota than those without. And many of the symptoms of autism, like diarrhea, constipation, gastrointestinal pain, many of those can actually be addressed with probiotics. So I have a course on that.
Wonderful. And that's really accessible information and really, really powerful and empowering.
Yeah, and all based on the science. So I go through the clinical trials, I read up on the research, and I've rebuilt guts many times.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it's based in science. It's not based on anything else. It's what a PhD chemist would do to help her daughter.
Yes, well put. Well put. I love that. That's a great point. Well, that's really, really impressive. And those kinds of things, I mean, I know we can't discount all the different types of therapy there are. I'm sure there's an interaction between all of them, being supportive and maybe adding some parts, just like you said with the 8 special diets. So I think a really robust, well-rounded approach sounds like the approach that you're suggesting. Would you say that's about correct?
The best approach is understanding your child and what their symptoms are, and then making sure whatever you do address those symptoms. So even educational wise, even educational wise, there are lots of different ways to teach. Let's say like social skills. There's many different ways to teach social skills to someone with autism.
Right.
But you want to pick the way that brings joy to your child, so that it's not painful, it's not harmful for your child. It becomes fun and joy, and it becomes what you expected parenting to be.
Nice. And is that what you would say yours is around now with her after this many years?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. We have so much fun. I used to be a caregiver to her.
Yeah.
And we go to amusement parks, we go to the Jersey Shore, she's in swim lessons. It's fun. It's really fun.
So now you're a parent. She
smiles when I walk into the room, which I know when she's a teenager will stop. But
Wow, that's amazing. And what kind of things do you do together now? Or where is she at in school? Like how does that all work?
Well, that's why I'm very familiar with educational approaches. Educating someone with autism really is something that has to be customized. So she learns in a very kind of 3-dimensional visual way. So it's really making sure that she can have materials taught to her in that way.
Of course. Okay. Does she work with a tutor?
So she loves to learn everywhere. So she's like a sponge now, and it's just she learns from everyone. It's great to see. It's absolutely great to see.
Wow. So you guys do a lot of outings, or is she in school? Would you say 5 days a week? How does it work with you guys, or does she have time? Are you working full time, or are you now what? How does that working?
So I'm working with my autism blog full time.
Wonderful, Theresa.
She goes to school 5 days a week, and we do certain activities at home. I teach her certain skills at home,
Right.
just kind of developmentally catch her up.
Yeah.
But do it in a really fun way. So we'll take trips to Manhattan, we'll go on the subway, we'll go on the bus. We'll start going to restaurants. Now that her gut has healed, she can start to eat more and more different foods, still obviously healthy and organic and things like that.
Right.
And that's one thing that people don't know about diets with autism. They always hear about how the children have to have a restricted diet.
Okay.
But when you heal the gut, then you don't need that restricted diet.
Excellent.
So it's not this lifelong sentence of gluten-free and only eating certain amounts of foods, and that's actually the wrong way of healing autism or healing really any disease. When you heal the gut, you have this time of intense healing where you're eating really pure foods and everything like that. But my daughter's going to go off to college. I have to be realistic about things. She's going to make her own food choices.
Yeah.
So the real key with diet and autism is you heal the gut, but then you expand and you transition back to a normal, healthy diet.
I think that's really, really important to make note of. And I think that's a really great point. And I think you're right. That's with many healings, because as you said with the gut, you can heal it and then it's not struggling anymore. Like things like people having leaky gut or issues like that. Would you say once you heal that, you don't have to worry and you can continue eating like you said, healthfully, and not things that irritate you because everyone's different. But would you say, quote unquote, sort of normally again, or?
Yes, that is the goal. And so many people don't do that.
Yeah.
So they get into this whole restrictive foods on special diets. And you can restrict foods, but that's not necessarily going to heal your gut.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you have to do to heal the gut. And then you can go and expand your diet and eat, let's say you can eat grains again, you can eat dairy again. There are certain probiotics that work wonders if you want to eat dairy again.
Right.
So this is the aspect, and this is why you want support when you're healing anything, because if you don't have that knowledge, then you might be withholding food from your child unnecessarily.
Yeah, such a good point. Now, do you work with parents or their children if they don't have autism now with regards to healing guts?
I do work with parents whose children have ADHD, because many times when you're healing autism, sometimes the autism diagnosis will no longer fit, but then they'll get the new ADHD diagnosis, and then that eventually can be healed as well. So I'm very familiar with autism and ADHD.
Excellent. What a great resource you are, I'm sure, to so many people. And that's really, really valuable. So I'd love to, just go into a little bit of your recommendations as a mom, as a fit mama for, as a parent with a child with special needs. What are some of your routines? What are some of your repetitions that you do that help you or that you recommend to other parents now? Because I'm sure you do mentoring with other parents who are going through what you went through.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing would be to accept and almost enjoy asking for help and support from other people.
Good one. I like the thought of enjoying that. And that is something scary for many people, to not only accept and receive help, but to actually go and enjoy it. Let's talk about that point for a minute. Was that a hard transition for you? Because as a type A personality, and that's sort of, I can do everything anyone else can do and all myself and all that. Did you find that to be tough to actually accept help and then to enjoy it?
Yes. Oh my goodness. When you were just saying that, I can tell you a funny story of you. I was trying to do everything myself, and in the house we would have there's these winter windows and you have to take them off. So, my daughter was at school and I'm in full, like, I can do everything on my own mode. And I was up on a ladder trying to pull these things off. I know it's not going well. And I'm just like, what are you doing, Theresa? You are going to kill yourself. You need to stop this. Like, and I really kind of had a moment with myself. Like, if you fall off this ladder, what's going to happen to your daughter? This is, get over this, So, I called a handyman, easy peasy, came over and he took off all the windows and stuff. But it was that moment of, what are you doing? And I really could have hurt myself. So when he came over and when he took those windows off for me, I did experience joy, like, it was like this relief. I don't have to do it all myself. So I would just kind of expand on that more and more. It was like, okay, I can ask a friend, and then to receive it, and then to see how much joy it brought someone else to actually help me.
Yes.
Helped me get over my desire of wanting to do everything myself.
Well said. Well said. Accept and enjoy asking for help. That's beautiful. What's number 2?
Number 2 is definitely diet.
Talk to us about that.
Healing autism, you need energy. And so the diet is just as important for your child as it is for yourself. That's something that I learned, because for the beginning part, I was, making my daughter all these special foods. And then I would still try and eat my old ways, which weren't bad or anything, but it was definitely not as great as I eat now.
Right.
And then it just became, as she got so much better, it was just like, Theresa, why aren't you eating like that?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So the scientist in me was just like, all right, you need to eat better. And then I started feeling better. I could parent better. I had more patience because I was nourishing myself. So diet is so important for the child, but also for the parents as well.
Such good advice. And even just using the word nourish feels better. Again, you have this way of using words that feel good instead of feel like that another to-do list item. And nourishing yourself, nourishing your child just feels a lot more fulfilling than restriction.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. And what would be your third key piece of advice to parents, to fit mamas, to caregivers, parents that are teaching and helping and healing and all the things?
My third piece of advice would be to celebrate success.
Ooh, talk to us about that. I like it.
It's very important, and it's so often not done at all. So it can seem like the list of things to do for your child is endless. So when a milestone is achieved or something is done, it's so easy to just be like, oh, I have so much more to do.
Yeah, on to the next.
Yeah. And it just kind of robs you of being a parent, because a parent is about celebrating those successes and saying, oh, look how great so-and-so, look, Max just caught the ball. And parents celebrate those things. And having a child with autism, it's even more important to celebrate those successes, because there probably was a time when you thought that would never be possible. So celebrating those success and just acknowledging your hard work and just having fun.
Yes, having fun. That's such a beautiful finish. And I think saying just what you just said right there is celebrating those successes of things that you at one time didn't even think were possible. And I think I really want to take a moment to breathe that in, because I think that happens to all of us, even on our own journeys to our goals. We sometimes say in our minds, oh, I'd love to run a marathon, or I'd love to do this or participate in that or join a league or do whatever. But then we don't actually let ourselves follow through on how good that would feel if it could be a reality. And you're saying, like, so often we hit realities that we go, oh, yeah, after a while, you didn't even realize it was out of reach because it became normal. And that's so sad to just miss it, right?
Yeah. It is celebrating success. It gives you momentum to keep going.
Yes, it keeps you motivated because those days are long, would you say?
Yes, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But when you celebrate success, they become fun.
Yeah, right? In between each of those, what feels sometimes like long days, you realize that those moments are precious. And I know I talk about this in my book, specifically around the fact that when people are on their deathbeds, they are not looking back and, remembering the graduation or the wedding. They're actually remembering and with fondness missing those moments at home around the dinner table or just playing with a puzzle on the floor. Just the little interactions that we so often do disregard as day-to-day stuff, right?
It's so important.
Yeah. So acknowledging that and, following the things that you talk about on your blog, which are really, really scientifically based, really informative, evidence-based stuff that is relevant not only to autism, but to this day and age, right? Which, like we talked about, sometimes the science doesn't meet the media, especially mainstream media, for years and sometimes too many decades to count. So I really, really am so grateful, Theresa, to have had you on the podcast today. Are there any other things that you want to leave the Fit Mamas with, that you want to talk to, really with regards to your experience or your story or what you've learned, or any words of wisdom to part with?
I would just say, you got this.
Yes, to have a cheerleader over your shoulder is nice. And when we can be our own, right? I'm sure you had to say that to yourself many, many days and nights. Did you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Eventually I believed it.
Yeah. And it is an eventual, right? If you do it 1, 2, 3, 5 days or 5 weeks, it still may not be there, right? As a second nature, but eventually it will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's so, so valuable. Thank you, Dr. Theresa, for being here. We will look for you at autism.net, awe spelled AWE, as in the awe that we feel when we see the beauty that is within us and around us and within and around our children. So thank you for being a beacon for that. And thanks for being here, Theresa.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Namaste. Wow, right? Wow. There it is, Fit Mama. That was my chat with Dr. Theresa Lyons. You can find her at autism.net. That's spelled AWE, as in awesome, autism.net. And you can check the show notes for that link and all the other links you will need to connect with Dr. Theresa Lyons and with me and the Fit Mama group and all the rest of the community and happenings we have going on. Find me, please, at Love Jen Oliver on Instagram. Send me a message. Tell me how you're doing. Share this with a friend who will thank you for the inner size, the work into their workout. Can't wait to share. Can't wait to talk to you. Can't wait to connect across the globe with you, Fit Mama. Have a great day. Namaste.